Hello there, everybody. Welcome again. It's Wednesday night, time for another episode of the Red Delta Project podcast and live stream Q&A, where we discuss fundamental principles to give you more power and freedom in your fitness lifestyle. My name is Matt Schifferly, as always, founder of the Red Delta Project and author of the books that sponsor these episodes, help financially support it, the Grind Style Calisthenics, the brand new micro workouts, smart bodyweight training, and so on. And this show is also supported by any of the affiliation links down below, from NOSC suspension strap setups and World Fit isometric equipment, which I highly recommend. So check that on out down below in the description. Today's topic, we are discussing the 4 fundamentals that I've been asked to speak more in depth on, basically that make up the keys to your neuromuscular proficiency. As I talk about, this is the foundation of grind style calisthenics, but it's more than calisthenics. It's not a calisthenics thing. Neuromuscular proficiency is essentially the bulk of research I've done over the years when I kept going through different exercise, different programs and stuff. And like a lot of folks out there, always thought something's missing. If you've ever been doing your strength workouts and you're like, I'm working hard and I'm doing the right exercises and I'm doing the programs and stuff, but it still feels like something is holding me back, this episode is for you, because the fact of the matter is, chances are very good there is something holding you back. And the reason for that is because when it comes to our strength training, in particular, strength and muscle building workouts, which I'm assuming a lot of folks are very interested in, there is a hierarchy of abilities, okay? So think of this as like anything else in life, where you have to crawl before you learn to walk. You have to walk before you learn to run, correct, right? So if you're trying to start and be proficient at something at a more advanced level, but you don't have the foundational abilities yet, you're never going to be able to develop those more advanced capabilities nearly to the degree you're capable of. And you're always going to feel like you're being held back no matter how hard you work and no matter how correct your programming is. So that was always my case. Whenever I was doing my workouts, sometimes I'd crack some sort of a little discovery and improve something. And suddenly it was like taking off the brakes, and my ability to do squats or pull-ups or something would just jump forward. And I'd think, oh, this is great, wonderful. But then I'd hit a wall real quick, and it's like, well, what the heck? Like, it was going great, and then I hit a wall, and sometimes it would fall back. And I was like, well, what's going on? Like, I didn't change anything. And the answer is because over the years, I've learned that when it comes to our ability to effectively train in our workouts, it's really not about your exercises. It's not about your sets and your reps and your programming and all that. Not that that's not important, but on the most fundamental level, what makes your exercises effective is how well you can use your own muscles. That's what it comes down to. Basically, to put it simply, if you improve your neuromuscular proficiency, your ability to build muscle and strength goes up, regardless of any other variables. I don't care what your workout looks like. I don't care what you're training. I don't care how your programming is. You improve your neuromuscular proficiency, it's going to be more effective. But if your neuromuscular proficiency is low, which it very often is for a very large number of people, nothing you do will ever possibly work to at least a decent level. You'll never get the strength you want. You'll never get the performance. You'll never be able to build the muscle to the degree that you want. Not even a chance, regardless of any other variables. So that's what the stakes are for today. So let's get into it right now. So what is this hierarchy, right? Well, it is important to remember that your ability to use and work your muscles comes from your brain. Your brain is what controls your muscles. The dumbbell in your hand doesn't tell your muscles jack squat. Yeah, you pick up that dumbbell's not doing anything whatsoever for your muscles. The signals telling your muscles how to behave is from your concentration. That's why they call it the neuromuscular system. 2 parts, nervous system, muscular system. The way I refer to this in my book, Grind Style Calisthenics, is your muscles are like the wheels of your car. And your nervous system is the engine and the transmission and the shocks and all the other things that actually are responsible for your performance, right? But we get so caught up in what is the muscle doing or what is the dumbbell and how many sets and reps. That's like trying to build a faster race car and focusing on just what color the car is. Or should it be a 5-spoke wheel or a 6-spoke wheel and stuff like that? In reality, that's not what's driving the bus. Your brain is what's driving your muscles. It's the thing that is responsible for what your muscles do. So let's get right to it. Step number 1, there's 4 stages, right? Stage number 1 is tension control. That's the first thing you need to have, because you can only work a muscle to the degree you can engage it. Now, I know a lot of people out there will be like, my muscle connection, it's a myth and everything. Furthest thing from the truth. It is the only thing that makes your muscles work. I can't take a paraplegic, strap them to a leg press, literally duct tape their feet to the pad of the press and say, all right, go, make your leg muscles stronger. It can't happen because the signal coming from their brain to their legs isn't reaching their legs due to whatever injury or condition they have, right? The leg press doesn't tell their muscles to work, their brain tells it to work, and that signal goes to the nervous system. And your nervous system gets conditioned exactly like your muscles. In fact, most of the conditioning and development we get from strength training isn't at all muscular, it's neural. You develop your nervous system first and foremost. And we need to recognize this because our neural ability to control muscle tension is something very few people ever work on. And that's a damn shame, because your nervous system, your neural control of your ability to generate tension is one of those many things that crosses the conscious subconscious barrier. It's like how we speak, how we breathe, which of course is also muscular, how we stand, how we think. There's a lot of things we do subconsciously. We can take conscious control of it, but we don't think to do it very much, and we're not concentrating on it very much. And as a result, the ability to do these things is just on autopilot. It's like being in a car and taking your hand off the wheel and saying, I don't care, I'm just gonna end up wherever. And you just assume the car knows where to go. I know that analogy doesn't work for things like Teslas and autonomous cars and stuff, but that's exactly what happens to most people when they go into a gym, is they're just assuming their muscles know what to do, which is a big mistake because your nervous system gets conditioned just like anything else in your body. And for the vast majority of us, our nervous system and our ability to generate tension in our muscles is woefully under-conditioned, largely because we're sitting a lot. A lot of it's in our back, a lot of it's in our lats, erectors, hamstrings, glutes, and so on, because we sit so much. You can decondition your nervous system just like you can decondition anything else. And if it's out of shape, you have to recondition it. If you don't recondition it, nothing you do in the gym will ever stand a chance of working to even a small degree of success. So first things first is get really good at generating muscle tension in the muscle. And this is something you can always improve upon. I've even talked to bodybuilders, state champions, powerlifters, and they'll tell me, I'm still working on generating tension control. It's not one of these things that you can generate and improve upon and be like, okay, I'm good, I'm done, I can engage my lats, that's check that off, I'm done. You can always improve upon it. You can always get better at doing it. I'm still getting better at engaging even muscles like in my chest and my back and everything like that. So the way I recommend to work that is the simplest thing ever is isometrics. Isometrics is by far and away the quickest, fastest, and easiest way to get that nervous system fired up. All right, so that's why we have that as stage 1 in ground style calisthenics, because you can only work your muscles to the degree you can engage them. Stage 2 is once you can engage them, you have to be able to coordinate them for stability, because you're only as strong as you are stable. If you don't have stability going on, you're dead in the water. Right? Your results are DOA. And the best way to understand the importance of this is if you've ever gone to any sort of a strength seminar, I don't care what it is, kettlebells, calisthenics, powerlifting, bodybuilding, how to do better calf raises, any kind of strength seminar, go to any strength seminar with anybody under any circumstances, and 90% of the information you're going to get is about improving your stability, how to breathe, how to stand, wedging, bracing, turning on tension control is probably going to be discussed at length. Almost all the information is about creating a more stable environment for your body, because only in a stable environment are you going to be able to get stronger. If you're unstable, like if you've ever tried to run on grass that's wet or ice or something, you know you can't generate power. Your nervous system will not let you. It recognizes that it does not have the stability, and therefore it's kind of like having a limiter on that car. It's like, dude, I know you got 900 horsepower in this sucker, but I'm only going to keep you to 130 because you're on slick roads. I'm not going to let you even come close to the amount of power you can generate. So once we've got tension control, then we employ better stability. We squeeze inwards. We have shifting moves and grind style calisthenics. We want to feel solid as a rock, because when you feel more solid, then you can develop more strength. That's the third one, strength. Now, I'm not talking about strength, and oftentimes in the fitness world, we think of strength of, I could do 1,000 push-ups. I'm talking about how much tension goes into your muscle. Power lifter style stuff. How heavy can you go? How much tension can you hold in a muscle? More tension, more strength. It's that simple, right? So you have more stability. Now you have the ability to generate more strength. So we want to make sure that some aspect of your strength training is heavy, 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 heavy. That's why the strength phase in grind style calisthenics, I usually recommend no more than like 6 to 8 repetitions. If you can do 10, way too light. You got to get super, super heavy. I know in like Westside Barbell and conjugate training, they purposely make you lift heavier than your 1 rep max in part of those phases. It's supposedly heavier. You actually can do it more. That's why it works. But it's basically saying, I want you to be able to generate an ungodly amount of tension in your muscles in a short period of time. Okay. And then the fourth stage is neuromuscular endurance. Okay, so you can generate a lot of tension. How long can you keep it there? And that's where the hypertrophy really comes into play. But that's hard because it's not just muscular. A lot of it's mental. A lot of it's emotional as well. There was a story, I was reading an email from Zach Ivanish over undergroundstrength.com. He was talking about in the old days, he was in this like hardcore gym. And the owner of the gym was kind of watching him squat, and he's like, I got to put on a good show. So he loaded on enough weight that he's like, I can maybe do 10 reps. I'd usually do about 10 reps. But he had that little voice in the back of his head, like, so-and-so's watching me. I got to put on a good show. And he got 15 reps, 15 repetitions. What he thought was his 10 rep max was 15. And if the stakes were more dire, he probably would have gotten 20. And this is why I always tell people that failure is subjective. Going to failure is subjective. People are like, I went to failure. I'm like, if I had a gun to your head, if your family's life was on the line, if you could win $1 million, I guarantee you would have been able to do more. So that's why going the distance for endurance and pushing yourself into that red zone and beyond requires more than just how much can the muscle do. It's how much can you go? Can you go into that place mentally and emotionally where you are going DEFCON 5 and beyond? So those are the 5 steps. You can only build muscle to the degree you are strong. You can only be strong to the degree you are stable. You can only be stable to the degree you can engage your muscles and have tension control. If you lack that tension control, you cannot build stability. If you do not have stability, you cannot build strength. And if you're limited in strength, you will not be able to build potentially more muscle. Now, of course, this is all about the workout aspect. Being able to build muscle and strength depends on a hell of a lot more than your workout: lifestyle, rest, sleep, diet, attitude, all those other things, right? It's not just if you get your workout down pat, that's not the whole picture by a long shot. But when it comes to the workout, you have to have these 4 things, which is why our grind style calisthenics method employs all 4 phases for every single workout. Now, do you need the grind style method? Do you need to do in that order? Of course not. No. Lots of people have been able to do this without it, but you want to have at least some degree of practice and attention, periodized, different workouts, something you practice where you're working on your tension control, you're working on your stability. You've got some semblance where you're working on how much tension or strength you can generate in the muscle, and you're pushing yourself into that red zone and beyond, at least to some degree at some point. You certainly may emphasize one phase or the other. I know lots of people who are like strength, 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 and every once in a while they're like, I wonder how many pull-ups I can do, and they'll push it into the red zone. But it's more important to recognize that those are the 4 things that have to be in place. I didn't make these things up. These are the things I've witnessed over years of, if they're lacking tension control, nothing works. Okay, you got tension control. Okay, now we need stability. Oh, you got stability. Okay, now suddenly, oh, wow, it's so much easier to get stronger. Strength is going up like crazy. And when they're getting stronger, they're like, oh man, I'm doing far more reps. I can do more reps with more weight. It's so much easier for me to put on some muscle. So tension, stability, strength, and muscle. Those are the 4 phases of neuromuscular proficiency. Check out my book, Grind Style Calisthenics, down below. I just did an update on that where I made the new recommendations of the rep ranges and stuff like that. So it's kind of almost like volume 2 or edition 2 of Grind Style Calisthenics for how to apply that. But you can apply that method to any kind of method you want. Powerlifting, Olympic lifting, kettlebells. It doesn't have to be calisthenics. It works for everything. So those are your 4 phases of neuromuscular proficiency. Use them, get fixed on whatever is holding you back, and watch your potential skyrocket. All right, let's get to some questions here. We got quite the crew on today. Everybody's coming on in. Let's get to some questions. Remember, if you say, hey, Matt, at the beginning of your question, I know that's something directed towards me, and I can address it promptly. All right. Let's see what we have here. Mr. Al Painter in the house. Hey, Matt, when I do a park workout, what is a potential substitution for not being able to do the loaded Zerchers you program as workouts, Zercher carries? Steep angle mountain climbers with the NOSC, yeah, that can work pretty well. Carries, it depends on what you're trying to load though. Are you loading the lower body or upper body specifically? This is one of the advantages of carries with good heavy weights though, is it loads everything. But with calisthenics, most of our carrying methods are lower or upper body. So some of the best carries that you'll use in the bodyweight world are things like front levers. Front levers are unbelievably good carry movements. Handstands, believe it or not, are good carries. Walking handstands against a wall. Those are supremely effective. For what you're looking for, what I would recommend are like duck walks. So get down into a squat and walk forward in the squat position kind of thing. Don't stand up, just stay nice and low. You can use the NOSC trainer to assist with this. So it's kind of holding you up a little bit, but eventually you're going to go sans suspension trainer and you're going to walk real nice and low. Crawling is also really good. Doing things like bear crawls, monkey crawls, lateral crawls, crab walks, that's carrying in the body weight world. So the bear crawls especially would be a very good substitute for that as well. All right. Michael in the house. How's it going? Big Smoke. Fantastic. Awesome. BK Trainer. Hey, Matt. Definitely stability to put tension in the muscle to then produce force. Agreed. Yeah, it's magical. It really is. Like when you get more stable, you go to one of those strength training seminars. I mean, not so much these days now. Nobody's holding those things, but it's wild how quickly it works. I'm not saying like it develops more strength in several weeks. It develops it like that. When I did the RKC with legendary strength coach Dan John was holding it here in Denver, he has the most amazing little tricks where it's like, I can't do this, I can't lift this, or I can't do this. And he'd be like, okay, press your hands close together while bending over or something. And that would just engage the muscles enough and teach you how to have some stability. And suddenly you can do it. Instant strength within a matter of seconds, because it would just give you these little exercises that would just momentarily give you a little more tension control and stability, and suddenly you're stronger. Suddenly it's an ability to do it. And that's why overcoming isometrics can be so powerful, is because it teaches your muscles how to generate tension, and even some exercises even generate stability very quickly. The isoloop exercise is very handy for that. You put the loop underneath the foot over your shoulder and stuff. First time I give that to people, 9 times out of 10, they fall over. They like push up against it, boom, and they go right on over because their hips and stuff, they're not engaged. They're not stable. So they're immediately wobbling all over the place. But literally in about 15 seconds, their body figures it out, how to generate tension. Oh, I need more tension in my hips. I need more hamstring activation. And they're solid as a rock. And it's wild because then I'll have them do lunges afterwards. And they're like, oh my gosh, like I feel like I'm just made out of stone. Lunges used to be this little tiny wobble. Like a lot of times instability isn't the kind where you're like, whoa, I'm all over the place. A lot of times instability is not something you notice, but then you improve it and you're like, wow, I feel like I'm rooted into the ground, and you feel more stable, even though you didn't know you were lacking it. When you gain it, it's like, wow, this feels so much different. Same thing with tension control. That's why a lot of times people with tension control, they're like, it's, bro science kind of stuff. It's like, yeah, but once you improve it, it's not bro science, because everything feels miles different, like way different. Then you start to think to yourself, gosh, if that's how push-ups are supposed to feel, what the heck have I been doing for the past 10 years or so? It changes everything. All right, let's go into some more here. Hey, Matt, how much tension do we need to apply to the muscles in the tension chain, enough to have mindfulness, or the more the better, not like overcoming isometrics because then we aren't moving? Good, very good question. This is a very good question I get a lot with chain training, where people are like, okay, so should I just tense up max? Because then you can't move, right? So as needed. The thing with chain training in particular is it doesn't need to be maximum tension, particularly for a lot of exercises that require great degrees of movement, like shifting movements and stuff we have. If you tense up as hard as possible, you won't be able to move very much. So as long as you have some tension and you're feeling some degree of tension, that's the important thing. Because tension control doesn't always mean max tension. It just means something there so you can feel the muscle engage and you're like, oh, my glutes are on. Great, wonderful. That as long as you get some of it and you can feel it, that's enough. And then you can apply it into the workout, and the tension will increase as resistance increases and stuff like that. Another question. Hey, Matt, does TUT give more joint pain? Shouldn't. TUT is just time under tension. Actually, fundamentally, those are the only two things your muscles understand. Your muscles are very simple. They have an insertion and an origin point, and they create tension to bring the two closer together, right? That's all there is. Muscles are really, really simple on a fundamental level. It's how much tension do they generate and how long is it there for? That's what TUT means. That's what time under tension is. The more you improve your tension control, the more your joint pain should go down, because joint pain oftentimes is a reflection of not enough tension in a muscle somewhere. A muscle's not doing its job. That's why the force is going through your joints. Force goes through muscles when muscles are tense, and muscles can handle force very well. But when muscles are not tense, because there's no tension control, then that force is still going somewhere through the body, and it's probably going to go in a bad place lots of times in those sensitive joints. Awesome questions here, everybody. You guys are on point tonight. Lee Sutherland, hey, Matt, in pistol squats, I can bang out reps with my heel elevated, sure, but when I try them with foot flat, I still want to fall back. Is this from weak hips or weak core still? It could be a little bit of both. Hip flexors, oftentimes the hips may not be quite flexible enough for the pelvis to have a little tiny bit more of an anterior pelvic tilt. When we fall backwards, it usually means that we have too much of a posterior pelvic tilt. And so the posterior tilt of your pelvis is throwing your spine backwards and you fall backwards. So it's probably a hip mobility issue. Could be a bit of an ankle mobility. So your knee isn't going quite forward enough, but typically that's not the case. It's usually a hip thing. So the elevation of your heel, what that's doing is it's not so much elevating your heel as it's allowing your shin to go forward more. And because your shin is going forward more, the angle of your femur is forward more. And because the angle of your femur is forward more, that posterior tilt in your pelvis isn't quite as forceful backwards as possible. So if you can loosen up your hips a little bit more, stretching those hamstrings and glutes, so you can still maintain that pelvic tilt to be not quite as much of a posterior tilt, then it's going to give you the same thing. So you're on the right track, but visualize in your mind that glute and hamstring complex, like at the bottom of your butt, stretching out as you get into those, and that should help you over time. Sajin, hey Matt, should one focus more on strength or skill-based exercises as a beginner? Oh, it depends on what's more important to you. Do you want the skill stuff or is the strength stuff? Now, typically, though, strength will be the way to go. I mean, across the board, with most individuals, the recommendation is get stronger. Just get stronger. If you get stronger, because a lot of times people are recognizing if you get stronger, then your foundation is stronger and you can build more muscle and stuff like that. I'm just recognizing that in order to get stronger, you need stability and you need tension control below that. So strength is certainly something to build up, because you will not have skills without strength. And that's one of the reasons why I'm always kind of like, how in the world is a skill exercise not a strength exercise? Like, you ever try and hold a front lever? That's one of the hardest back exercises in existence, is front levers. That's one of the hardest strength back exercises, is front levers. So skill and strength are one and the same, and strength is a skill, and skills require strength. But typically as a beginner, fundamental basic movement patterns, push, pull, squat kind of stuff. And a lot of the skills will be basically just more advanced versions of those three movement patterns anyway. Big Smoke, hey Matt, is high frequency training effective for strength and skill? More for skill. Strength can certainly, skill and strength are one and the same. There's two ways you can look at this one, because with strength, I mean, you've got to be able to kind of push yourself a little bit, going to create more fatigue. So frequency may be lower, but at the same time, there's evidence that you can go the other way. I mean, look at Dan John's Easy Strength program. That's pretty high frequency. You do an exercise every single day, and you do it relatively light too. And the basic idea is you're just practicing the movement. Like in the martial arts, we have something called the rope method, where you punch and you punch and you punch and you punch and you punch, and you do it so much that you can't get it wrong. You know, it's like you could do this in my sleep, and then you do it another million times and stuff. And the idea is, if you can get so proficient with it, those neural grooves are worn in so much that it's very easy to do the exercise because it's easier. And now you're stronger. So frequency is good. I mean, I always tell people, like, train as much as you want. Like, forget all these ideas of never do this frequently or this much and stuff. If you can do an exercise productively, do it. You want to do it 100 billion times a day, go for it. Because ultimately, your success doesn't come from how hard you're working or busting your ass. It comes from how productive is your training. And if you can do your squats 1,000,000 times a day, and you're still learning and improving how well you do your squats, improving that neuromuscular proficiency, great, go for it. But you'll probably have days where you're like, I just don't have it today. Like, my legs are not on point. My muscles are not going to be able to play nice. Sure, it's going to be hard work, but so what? You know, if hard work and effort was all it took, we'd all be in great shape and everybody would get the best results possible. So I always say, train as much as you want, but make your productivity your guide. Train if you can be productive. Is it going to be productive? Are you going to be able to do the exercise better or kind of get in the groove a little bit more? But if it's going to be a struggle and you're just getting through it to check something off and great, I did my 100 reps for the day, a little more rest. You want to crush the exercises is basically what I'm saying. And as long as you can do that, hell, do it as much as you want. How you doing, Michael? Drop weight daddy. Hey, Matt, do you have a particular mental preparation method how to focus in the working tension, working member? Yeah, I mean, that's tension control. That's isometrics right there. I mean, that's basically as mental as you can get. Like, I don't have any sort of meditations or anything like that I do, because it's the neuromuscular system. If you do it with your muscles, it's affecting your brain. Your brain affects your muscle. It's a cycle. Your brain is giving signals to your muscles, and your muscles are giving signals back to your brain. So what you do with your body affects and influences your mental state. Your mental state influences your body, and it's a cycle. So I'm a big fan of get moving. Start using your muscles right away and get that cycle going. And that's one of the great things about isometrics is it requires no prep whatsoever. You just do it. Like, I just here now, I put my hands together and I squeeze my chest and I'm engaging my pecs. Like, it takes nothing to start doing, but that gets that cycle, that process really starting to develop. So the isometrics are where I start. Absolutely. Even if it's something as simple as just 5 seconds, it goes a long way in that mental preparation. Jonathan Sprite, hey Matt, can I do bodybuilding through isometrics only? Sure, of course. Your ability to build muscle only depends on those two things, time and tension. How much tension is in the muscle? How long is it there for? That's it. Those are the only two variables you have. Everything that we talk about in exercise methodology sets, reps, exercises, methods. We can look at things a million different ways. At the end of the day, it boils down to those two things: how much tension is in the muscle and how long is it there for? And that's the only thing you have to improve in order to build your muscle from an exercise standpoint. You just have to make it work harder and longer over time. That's the only thing you have to care about. How you do that, I don't care. Do whatever exercises you want, use whatever tools, do whatever programming you want to do, right? As long as you're making your muscles work progressively harder over time, which you certainly can with isometrics, you're going to get in the right direction. But then again, like I said, that only takes care of the exercise component. All of the other things that also heavily influence your ability to build muscle have nothing to do with exercise. So we have to kind of get our minds around that idea that the ability to build muscle depends on a hell of a lot more than what we do in our workouts. And I just have to mention that because oftentimes we get so stuck on the workouts component, we ignore all the other stuff, which is like 90% of the deal, right? It's like building a bonfire. The workout's just the match. Your sleep and your genetics and your hormones and your stress recovery and your diet and all those other things, that's the other stuff that goes into making the bonfire big, and everything else as well. Let's see, what do we got here? Zarate Karate in the house. Always good to see you, my friend. Hey, Matt, why do I get hip pain after a ton of squats? What do you recommend to alleviate the issue? Well, it depends on where the hip pain is coming from. It could very well be that you're bouncing out of the bottom of the squat. And this is a very common habit. It's something that I've certainly experienced my fair share myself, is people come down and they bounce out of it. It's like bouncing the barbell off your chest with bench presses. So what's going on is at the bottom of the squat, something's turning off. One of your muscles is greatly decreasing in tension, which happens very common in the extreme ends of your range of motion. And like I said, the force is there, but the tension in the muscle is turning off. And so as a result, the force is no longer going through your muscles. It's going through something in your hip that's not very good. Or it's stopping from being in a big muscle and it's going through a tiny little muscle like your piriformis or something. It's getting way overloaded and it's getting strained. So what I would do is I would practice, especially in your warm-ups, getting into the squat, the depth that you have. Make sure you have your tension in your quads, your hamstrings, your calves, and your glutes, especially, and your hip flexors too. Make sure you've got tension in all those areas. Now, it doesn't have to be max tension, but just some tension. Because if you can keep the tension in those muscles, chances are it'll take it out of that area that's causing some sensitivity in your hip. Very parched today. Excuse me. Next question. Hey, Matt, what's the best way to build neuromuscular efficiency for squats? I feel them more in my quads than my butt. Hey, very common. Very, very common. And that's largely just due to the mechanics of the squat. Is when you look at how much of you're moving, your quads are more distant from your upper body. So because it's not quite as central, it's got the most leverage on it. So very common, not a bad thing at all. I wouldn't worry about it. Usually when we feel it more in one muscle group, that oftentimes also just means that that's the weak link in the chain and it just will get stronger and then it will be taken care of. So probably not the best or not the worst thing right now. It could also be, again, that a lot of people have trouble using their glutes with squats. When they get down, they lose a lot of tension. So it's just a lot of the force is going to the quads instead of the hips. So I would just say, make sure you're practicing engaging your glutes. Get into a deep squat, shifting squats, or lunges. Lunges are really good as well. And try engaging those glutes. A tip that works very well, and this works typically, people have an easier time with this with lunges than squats, is bring your upper body in alignment with your shin bone. So when you squat and lunge, your shin goes forward, upper body, exact same angle. It's a weird trick I learned from a fellow coach of mine here in Denver. But when the upper body and the shin are in alignment and they're parallel, the glutes work better. I'm not entirely sure why. I think it has to do, again, with that posterior tilt. You're stretching out your hamstrings a little bit more, but that helps to engage the glutes a little bit more, and hopefully you'll bring some more tension into that as well. Oh, come on, show the question. There we go. Casey. Hey, Matt, you always mention training with different reps depending if for strength or muscle growth. Aren't they synonymous? Don't they go hand in hand? Absolutely, Casey. Very good question. You are absolutely right. Being able to build muscle is largely just a matter of making it progressively work hard. And of course, tension, the amount of tension into it is one of those variables. That's time and tension, right? It's tension. And strength is how much tension. And also just how much time is there. So typically in fitness speak, when people are talking about building muscle from strength, they're usually talking about a little bit more on the time scale of things. So the amount of tension is roughly the same. You increase the time. So reps, a little bit more volume. And then when you reach a certain level, like 15 reps, 12 reps or whatever, then you add resistance, effectively adding tension to the muscle, and you repeat the process. But you're absolutely right, because like I said, all you need is progressive time under tension. And you can have that with any kind of training method, even if it's more strength-based. Now, people oftentimes have a harder time pushing their muscle into that red zone with a lot more fatigue with strength-based stuff, which is typically, again, why you have people recommending higher reps for muscle building and strength is lower reps. But you're right, they are synonymous. They are very much, and that's why a lot of times people, if they start to focus more on strength training, suddenly they can build more muscle. Because like I said, your ability to create tension in the muscle, more strength, suddenly opens up the door for you to push the muscle into a higher state of fatigue. So they are synonymous, absolutely. And for the most part, I don't think most people should even worry about it too much. Like, is this going to build muscle or strength? Like, if you focus on building strength, you'll probably build muscle. But if you're getting to the point where you've always been working like doubles and triples, and you're like, I just want to build some more muscle. All right, bring it up a little bit. Get up into the 8 to 12 rep range, 15, maybe even 20, really challenge it kind of thing. It's a recommendation for it, but by no means exclusive for building muscle in that rep range. Very good question, very insightful. David Baker, hey Matt, I'd like to wake up at 5 a.m. to work out. I know you wake up early. Any tips on getting yourself to wake up that early? Yeah, get a job that requires you to wake up that early. That's why I get up that early. I mean, excuse me. I have to be at the gym by 5 a.m. at the absolute latest. So I usually find myself waking up shortly before 4 a.m. or right around 4 a.m., which that's pretty early. It's tough. I salute you for wanting to work out that early, because even when I train people at 5 a.m., I'm like, oh man, you guys are the true warriors. You won't catch me working out at 5 a.m. No way. I've done it before, and every time I've come to regret it. Be like, well, that certainly wasn't my most productive workout. Anyway, let's get more practical here. One is make sure you get into bed real good and early. You got to make sure you're doing that, because you still got to get good sleep regardless of when those hours are. Two is have something that's a commitment for making you get up early. So like tell someone you're going to meet them at the gym, have a workout planned, and you say, I'm writing this in my calendar, 5 a.m. It's amazing how when you schedule things, they happen. Like, oh, I'll get this workout in eventually. Put it in your calendar. Just having something there saying this is what you do at this time makes it happen at that time. But if you're like, I'll just get to it whenever, you oftentimes don't. So schedule it, set your alarm, have everything ready to go as much as possible. So remove as many steps between waking up and working out as possible. So if you're working out at home, like have your equipment set up, ready to go. Keep the bar on the plate, the plates on the bar. Have your suspension trainer set up in the doorway. Have everything ready to rock and roll. And have a little bit of a wake up routine too. Like I get up, okay, and then I feed my 2 cats. And then I've got a podcast I start listening to first thing in the morning, kind of just gets my mind engaged. I make some breakfast. So have a little bit of a routine that once you get in the habit of that routine, the first thing you do, your brain is automatically like, oh, okay, we're on a routine, and you just go through it. And at the end of that little wake up routine, you have your workout. That's what I would go with right there. Clark Road, hey Matt, tell us a little about the gym you work at. What kind of work you do there, please? Oh, sure. It's actually a very unusual gym. It's not the kind of gym you typically go to with a membership. It's technically often referred to as a small group personal training studio. So it's small group classes where we teach a circuit format class. It's no more than 6 people at a time. And every day is a focus. So today's workout, Wednesdays are leg day. So we had a circuit of 6 different leg exercises. You go through that 3 times. We have like a little bit of a breather in between each round. So you 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and there are squat variations, lunge variations, but they're all that sort of thing. And each day has a different focus. So Monday is upper body day. Tuesday is power and explosiveness day. Wednesday is leg day. Tomorrow is what we call our performance day, which focuses a little bit on athleticism, but it's kind of more like cardio day. And then Friday is what we call renew, where it's stretching, mobilization, the kind of stuff that just kind of gets you going for the weekend. So you're not wrecked for the weekend. And based on whatever goals you have, you're like, okay, based on your goals, we recommend, these classes, and that kind of gives you a plan. And I'm there to coach people through the class. So that's what I do. It's called E3 Fitness here in Denver. There's 2 locations, and it's kind of a neat deal. It's not personal training, although I still do that on the side as well, but it's a neat gym to work at. Very, very different type of workout format. All right, more question. Tyler, hey Matt, do you have any non-fitness goals you're working on? Oh, absolutely. I mean, one, it's kind of a goal. I don't really pay too much attention to it, but to get to 100,000 subscribers here on YouTube, that was actually my goal for 2020 and didn't quite make it. So that's now just an ongoing goal, is to hit that, just a little feather on the cap kind of thing. So everybody subscribe, right? I got that going for me. As far as like financial goals going on, I'm almost paid off all of my credit card debt. I got into quite the deep water with credit card debt from a lot of bad financial decisions for a number of years. So that's literally going to be done in like a month, which is going to be a big milestone. And the other goal too is I'm working a lot more on having more of a focused approach on my use of technology. I just read a book called Living with Monks by Jesse Itzler, a very good book. And what I've been doing is getting more of a focused and purposeful use of my technology, where instead of just whatever, I'll check email, I got 5 minutes, like I've got certain things I do on my computer and I got certain things I do on my phone, and I try not to mix them back and forth too much. So that's kind of my new goal there as well. So thanks very much for asking. Let's see. Well, I've got tons of questions. Again, folks, I'm sorry if I don't get to everybody. It's always difficult to do so. But if you ever do want me to address something specifically, don't hesitate. Reach out to me, reddeltaproject@gmail.com. I always welcome questions and inquiries through my private email. Steph, hey Matt, is exercise rotation really necessary to keep progressing? If so, how often should one rotate? It is, but it isn't kind of thing. I always tell people, like, you should be able to stick to the same exercises for the next 10 years and never change anything and still make progress. Because ultimately it boils down to how well you use your body, no matter what the exercise is. Okay, so if you look at a lot of like athletes, pro athletes and stuff like that, like I'm not going to tell a sprinter, okay, so I'm going to have, instead of sprinting today, we're going to have you run marathon distance or miles or something like that. You don't necessarily need it. A lot of the variety exercise stuff is, a friend of mine once told me he's got the theory that it's just to sell magazines, back when people bought magazines. It's like, well, we got to put more stuff in there. Okay, well, we could put new exercises. Well, why would people do new exercises? Well, we'll tell them it's good if they rotate and change things up. Okay, that's good. That'll make them buy more magazines. Maybe there's something to it, maybe not. There's definitely something to be said for just changing things up for the sake of giving your brain something fun to work with, right? It's like, oh, this is a different pull-up grip. Oh, this is a faster speed or a different tempo and stuff, because the effectiveness of your workouts ultimately comes from your focus and concentration. And if you're getting bored and you're like, oh, this old tired thing again, and it's feeling stale, it's not going to be nearly as productive as something that you're like kind of into. And a lot of times it's just for the sake of making things fun. Like in my new book on micro workouts, I give you lots of different workout templates and tools and stuff. It's like, do this type of workout for a while and just do this one for a while and stuff, just to make it fun, make it playful, right? Keeping things too structured and strict and routine can kind of kill off that fun vibe. Like kids, if you tell them go out and play, like, okay, everybody, let's play freeze tag. Okay, good. They got a basic structure of how to play a game of tag, and they go out and they have fun. But if you start to say, okay, everybody, we're going to play freeze tag and you're it for 5 minutes, and we do this every day at noon and stuff, and you make it super strict and structured, the kids start being like, I'm bored, like, I don't want to do this kind of thing. We need some degree of just playfulness in our workouts to make them fun. If they're too regimented and strict, it stops being fun. So having change just for the sake of fun and variety actually offers a lot more benefit than people realize. So that's why I always tell people, like, yeah, keep things to the fundamentals, push, pull, and squat and stuff. And if you're trying to work on strength, work on your strength and things. But ultimately, like, if you want to change something, just change it. You just go right on ahead. If you're like, I want to go with a different rep range, go for it. Chances are it's going to be more beneficial and engaging for you. Hey, Matt, cool fan. Hey, Matt, do you have any other interesting ways of overcoming isometrics besides using the iso loops? Oh, absolutely. Coming out with the review finally. I've been using this thing for months now. I apologize, but Bullworker has the IsoFlow. So the IsoFlow is an isometric tool from Bullworker, which is on the surface, it looks very similar to the ISO trainer from WorldFit, but it's actually far more versatile and you can do a lot more stuff with it. And it just gives you a lot more different things that you can do. And it's a neat piece of equipment. It's not one of the cheaper pieces of equipment out there, but it has far more versatility than like the ISO loop and even the ISO trainer as well. So I'll be coming out with a review on that, maybe even as soon as tomorrow, definitely by Friday. And just different tools like that are good. You can also, if you're looking for some variety with that, is go from more of the compound isometrics to more like a isolated isometric. So instead of like a forward chest press, doing like a chest fly, pressing your palms together, and then triceps and shoulders. So you break it up so you're focusing on one muscle at a time. It's a good way to give you some variety with isometrics. Let's see, getting questions here that I lifted on out. Felix, hey Matt, do you incorporate GMB style gymnastics, calisthenics in your own GSC workouts? Plan to do something like that? Absolutely. I'm a big fan of their Elements program. I really like their ability to improve how well you use your body. That's what GMB is really known for, is let's develop proficiency in how well you use your body. Now, I go with a little bit more of just the muscular approach of how well you can use your muscles, a bit more of a bodybuilder-esque mindset, but GMB is all about building those skills and how well you can use your body. And it's insanely valuable stuff. Like, you don't know how much that impacts your training and just your everyday life until you do it. Like, I did the Elements program on a whim, and I'm like, yeah, I'll give this a try. And within, I would say, 3 weeks, everything felt really different. Like my handstands, my squats, my walking, things were like, oh my gosh, like this is insane. As I feel like I'm learning to walk all over again. So highly recommend the GMB programs for sure. Next question, a little on weight loss. Any tips? I want to lose like 40 pounds because I'm 160, the age of 15. I'm not able to buy my own food and I have to work out at home. Any tips for me to lose weight as fast as possible? Well, number one, stop trying to lose it as fast as possible. That's one of the biggest traps that people fall into. It's like trying to sprint a marathon. 40 pounds, believe it or not, is a crap ton to lose. That is a lot of weight. I know a lot of, like, in our fitness culture, we've got like so much media out there of like, I lost 100 pounds and Biggest Loser lost 150 and stuff. Anything over 5 pounds is a crap ton of weight to lose. And it's going to be hard as hell. And it's probably going to take you a hell of a lot more time and effort than you think. I'm saying that stuff not to make you frustrated, but it's just to counteract so many of the messages out there that tell you it should be easier than it really is, it should be faster than it really is, and it should be coming off at a consistent pace. Because the reality is losing weight, especially that much, is by far one of the hardest things you can ever possibly do with your body. In fact, if I were a betting man, I would bet you $1 million right now you probably won't be able to do it. And I'm not being negative or anything. It's just I've been in this industry long enough to know that almost everybody who tries that fails. Very few people succeed. And again, I'm saying this to put the odds more in your favor. Because once you know that perspective, your chances of success go up dramatically. So let's look at this a little more practically here, okay? So 15 years old. One, you're young as all hell. Your body is still developing, and it's going to be a lot easier to lose the weight at this point in your life because your body's still burning calories like crazy, just growing and developing. So you got that going for you. Two, you can't control your food. Big deal. So what? You don't have to be able to control your food nearly as much. Now, I know this can be a little difficult depending on your food environment because I've known some kids when they're trying to lose weight and they're still living at home or they're in school and stuff and their parents make nothing but junk food and pizza every single night and stuff. It's going to be hard. That's going to be a lot harder than if your parents are like meat and veggies and healthy foods every single night and stuff like that. So portion control is your best friend. It's just about what do you normally eat for a portion control and drop it down, whatever less is. So if you're having pizza every night and you have 3 pieces of pizza, 2 or 1, right? See if, and a lot of times people can be more receptive to a little bit of changes here and there. Like maybe your parents is like, Ma, can we get some apples in here? I like apples. Can you get apples next time you go grocery shopping? You don't need to overhaul your diet. That's the biggest reason why people often fail is they try and change everything, right? And overhaul the whole diet. Just add 1 piece of fruit a day, 1 apple a day. I'm assuming you have a tap with water. Water is your new best friend. That's the only thing you're going to drink now. Just water or tea and coffee if you like. No calories. That's always one of the few dietary rules that I give people when they're trying to lose weight. No calories in the liquid. Zip. No protein shakes, nothing like that. Just no calories. It's so much easier to cut out calories in liquid form. No juices, no sodas and stuff. If you can't make that happen, then we'll change that approach. But let's start there and see what we can do. So portion controls down and no liquid calories. And finally, do something every day. The great thing about weight loss is it does not matter why you're burning the calories. Any type of physical activity works. There's no such thing as exercise for weight loss or a weight loss exercise. It's a complete myth. The reason why it doesn't exist is because everything burns calories. It's like, what kind of road do you need to drive on to burn gas in your car? All of them. Anything works. So get active any way you want. At the age of 15, do anything. Pick up a activity at school. See if there's some sort of a sporting club, hiking club, cycling, walking, getting outside, getting active in any way, shape, or form on a daily basis is going to be good. And basically just look for opportunities to be more active in that regard. That's what I would recommend. And yeah, best of luck. If you need more though, I mean, this is going to be a journey. Hit me up, reddeltaproject@gmail.com. Clark Rowe, once again, hey, just saying there are some great questions and answers here. Absolutely. You guys are the best. The RDP community always comes through on these live feeds. You always help each other out. You're always got each other back. I really sincerely appreciate that. It's one of those things that it brings more value here because I try and do the best I can for this, but ultimately you guys are the ones who are bringing the real value for each other. Music 598. Do you think PEDs should be more widely legalized, accepted, or more criminalized, performance-enhancing drugs like steroids and stuff like that? I, for one, think we need to get a lot more legalization for this sort of thing because the bulk of the damage that comes from performance-enhancing drugs comes from people denying that they're using them. It's like the person who's like, why am I not looking like that guy and stuff? And like, because he's on a freaking ton of drugs. When we start doing drugs, it totally changes the game plan. And there's so much damaging attitudes and assessments of our own bodies and what we can accomplish and stuff because we don't know the role drugs are playing in the landscape. And that's why I'm always so critical of people who are on drugs who claim to be natural. To me, that's flat out criminal. Like, I would much rather see, let's bring some degree of legalization, one, to keep it a hell of a lot safer, because performance enhancing drugs are drugs, and any kind of drug can carry serious consequences if you don't know what you're doing with it. And unfortunately, a lot of people, that's the case. There were a couple of guys in one of the early gyms I worked at, they were known for selling steroids. And I looked at them and was like, I wouldn't even buy a sandwich from those guys. They're sketch city. I wouldn't trust them as far as I could throw a quarter. And they were like, oh yeah, you want to buy steroids? I can hook you up. And like, no, I'm not buying from you. If I were to ever get involved in that sort of world, it's like, what are the reputable doctors that people go to that are making sure they're doing it in a safe way, right? So we can legalize it. If we legalize it, we can control it. We can tax the crap out of it, but we can also just help people not abuse them, not use them in a bad way. Plus, it gets rid of that barrier of like, no, I'm 100% natural, and it throws our expectations on everything way out of whack, because you don't have to take performance enhancing drugs to be harmed by them. So many people I run into are being harmed by the perception of what is natural, which is actually not natural. So if we can get it more into this guy's on drugs, and we get more of a clear picture on what drugs actually do and what kind of results are more drug dependent and what natural really is, I think that'll give us a much more healthy view of what we can really expect without drugs versus with drugs. And it also takes that pressure off people who are like, I'm natural, when they're really not, because that right there does a lot more damage than anything else. So I think it's just something that could be beneficial overall if we can get a little bit more open about it, and more beneficial for everybody. Amen. Hey, I love your advice on intuitive eating. Thank you very much. I refer to it every day. I just really want to make sure I'm eating enough to make the progress that I hope to make. Any thoughts? Well, yeah, man, if you're hungry, eat. It's that simple. Remember that your body's demand for food and nutrients will give you signals. It's funny how when it comes to nutrition, there's so many messages out there telling us to not trust our body, right? Don't trust it. Don't trust your hunger. Don't trust your desire and your cravings, and fight it. And you're your own worst enemy and all that sort of. When it comes to diet, all those messages are out there. But when it comes to anything else in life, we totally don't abide by that. Like, if you're hot, take off your jacket, right? If you're cold, put your jacket back on. Oh man, I really got to take a piss. Well, then go to the bathroom, right? We oftentimes listen to our body and obey and respect it with so many other things that it's telling us through our everyday. And yet for some reason, when it comes to food, it's like, ignore that craving, ignore that hunger. Oh, you're starving to death, still don't eat anything. It's totally backwards. So the whole point of intuitive eating, like one of the biggest myths about intuitive eating, is this idea that you just do whatever, right? And you listen to every little whim and you give in to every craving. It's not what intuitive eating is at all. That's the opposite of intuitive eating. That's the same thing as ignoring your body, right? Instead, the whole point is you have an objective with your diet. So if you're saying, I don't know if I'm eating enough, okay, well then listen to your body's cues for hunger and eat, make sure you're eating enough. And if you're like, I don't know if I'm eating enough, well, eat a little more, listen to your body. And if you eat more and you're like, oh man, I ate way too much, I'm kind of uncomfortable, I'm tired and stuff, there you go. There's your signal saying you didn't need to eat that much, kind of stuff. But if you're a little peckish and you're like, maybe I should eat more, well, give it a shot. A lot of it's through experimental trial and error kind of stuff. But it's about listening to those cues, because the more you listen to it and the more you get that feedback, the more you dial in those perceptions. And you're like, yeah, I should probably have another sandwich, even though dinner was an hour ago, kind of thing. And that will keep you right on point. Let's get just a couple more quick questions here. Rapid fire round. What's the best bench and overhead frequency for a novice lifter? Again, whatever you want, go for it. Usually twice a week is a good place to start, but usually listen to your joints on those. Those are two exercises that tend to irritate the joints. And always remember, the goal is never to work hard. The goal is to be productive. So how frequently can you work out, but keep your workouts productive? Meaning something about the workout is better than before. Your technique, your tension control, your reps, your weight, something is improving. The goal of every workout is to improve, not to work your ass off. If working your ass off was enough, we'd all be in great shape. So keep your eye on progressive productivity. And as long as you can be productive in your workouts and feel like, hey, I definitely moved the needle on that one, as much as you possibly want. And your body will tell you if it's too much. Any tips to stop shoulder pain in pull-ups? Make sure your lats are on. Lats and lower and your rear deltoids specifically. So get those shoulder blades back and down and depressed. Feel like you're driving your elbows into your pockets when you do that. You don't want to make your back wide, narrow. Keep it in as tight as possible. Play around with a narrow grip as well. Let's see. Oh, I thought that was a question. One more from Zarate Karate to finish us off. Hey, Matt. Have you tried the trifecta, bridge, hold, L, so hold, twist, hold from combat conditioning 2? So what are your thoughts on it? I have, in fact, it's fantastic. Twisting in particular, I do a little bit of something a little bit different. I do a variation where what I'll do is I'll just do a bend forward, kind of like touching my toes to stretch my posterior chain, work my flexion chain. So that's similar to the L-sit hold. And then I'll take my hands behind my back, shoulders back. That's similar to the bridge hold, but I can do that standing. And then what I'll do is I'll put a hand on my shoulder, I'll do this, shoulder, and then the other one behind, and I'll twist around as much as possible. So I do that instead, but it's basically kind of the same thing. It's a flexion, it's extension, and it's a twist for the 3 anatomical chains or the support chains. It's your flexion, extension, and lateral chains. But I like that because it's standing. And I'll literally, like when I'm coaching my classes at E3, I'll go through those just even while I'm coaching because it's so simple. You can do it while standing. So I definitely recommend that sort of thing. It's very, very effective, something we should be doing every single day. And it's definitely one of those things to really get in the habit of. Like, don't even think about it. Just go and do it kind of thing. Don't like, what's the frequency and how long? Just do it. Just do it to any degree. It's a beautiful thing about the trifecta. It works no matter how you do it. One last one, Bob Abdul, stuck at 305 bench. Any tips to break this plateau? Weight and repetition plateaus are the same kind of thing. The reason why you're plateaued is because you're not good enough at doing what you have already. So your weight and your reps, so 305, you're not benching 305 well enough to go beyond that, either with your reps or your weight. So once again, we look at the 4 stages. Tension control. So is there a muscle that's not tense enough? Shoulders, lats, hamstrings, glutes. Remember, bench is a full body exercise. So keep a tally on what muscles are not engaging enough. Maybe work on engaging those muscles prior to the bench press with the isometrics. Stability is huge. Okay, you got 305 over your throat. You need to be stable as hell. So make sure you are rock solid. I went to a strength conference one time, and the strength coach had us in a bench press position, and he literally would come and slap our legs and our arms around. He's like, don't let me move you. Don't let me move you. Don't let me move you. So it caused us to like really tighten up. So stability up the wazoo. If you can, a fun experiment to try is get a couple of dumbbells or kettlebells hanging off of the barbell. They call it like an earthquake bar. It doesn't take much, like 20-pound dumbbells will be plenty weight just on a bare bar. And you hold it up there with bands or chains with the kettlebells hanging like 1.5 feet off. And suddenly you're like, ah, you got to be so rock solid with that in order to keep progressing. And then finally, no struggle reps. Like, don't struggle with the repetitions, because a lot of times people are like, I got 305, and they're like, I know I'm exaggerating and stuff. None of that. Like, you got to make that 305 look easy. You got to make it look like it's the easiest thing in the world. Once you get there, you'll be able to progress your weight and reps, no problem at all. Oh, what the hell? One more question here. Once again, hey, Matt, I eat 1 time a day, then work out for an hour later. I'm going to start running in my backyard. Very good. Every day, hopefully we'll see some progress, taking advice and putting it in the work. Very good. And eat whatever frequency you like. Like, it's not about, should you eat 1 meal a day, 2 meals a day. The bottom line with your diet is it should give you energy, right? Especially when it comes to losing weight. Your energy level is by far the most important thing in your quest to lose weight, because when your energy level is up, your appetite goes down and your ability to burn calories also increases. When your energy level is low, it gets reversed. So your appetite and cravings skyrocket and your motivation and your ability to burn calories plummets. So when it comes to working out, diet and everything like that, change it however you want. But the bottom line is make changes that make you feel good, give you energy. If you're doing things in such a way that your energy level is plummeting, something is very wrong and needs to be addressed. And ultimately, this stuff should be getting easier over time. So we want to do things that spike your energy level up. If you have more energy eating once a day, great. If you have more energy eating 8 times a day, do that instead. That's something I learned about myself from when I was your age. When I was around 15, 16 years old, I learned that if I went more than several hours without food and then ate a lot, my energy level plummeted and I felt like crap. But if I was more of a grazer throughout the day, I was a hell of a lot better. So I'm like, okay, I guess that's what I got to do. Somehow that's how I roll. And so that's what you follow. Follow your energy level, not some sort of routine or some cookie cutter advice that you find on the internet or whatever. Anything that makes your energy level go up is probably a step in the right direction. All right, everybody, I am done. It is time for me to hit the sack because I got to get up at 4 a.m. tomorrow, of course, work at the gym. Thank you so much, everybody, for your questions. As always, do check out my books down below in the description. The new book, Micro Workouts, is out on Kindle. The physical version will be coming out very soon, possibly as soon as this weekend. Keep you updated on that. And also check out NOSC and WorldFit links down below as well. That helps to support the channel. I will talk to you folks next week. If you have any requests for podcast topics, leave those as well. Always entertain those sorts of things. So thanks very much. Talk to you next week. Be fit.